when you review the first meeting with VCU, is there something that jumps out that you hope the Spiders will do better tomorrow night?
Well, yeah, two things. We had a lot of turnovers in the first half. Obviously that is VCU's style and game plan. I felt like too many were unforced. We had 11 in the first half, finished with only 13. But I think, taking care of the ball is always important, and especially against their defense. And then the second thing is, we were 4 for 18 from 3. And for us, we need to make a few more shots than that to be able to win the game. So I would say those two things stand out to me, at the forefront of what we could do better.
Tyler was 1 for 12, just a rough night, or VCU did a little something to him that impacted that?
I think more just a tough night. Obviously they're aggressive. He's generally going to be defended by a guard. So someone who's a little bit smaller, maybe can get closer to him, make him less comfortable perhaps. But he had some opportunities, and I think, whether he created those opportunities or the team helped him get opportunities. I think he had opportunities. I think he just didn't finish well, didn't shoot the ball well.
Can I throw in an NLI question? And that is
NIL.
Excuse me.
No problem, John.
NIL, and ask you about the impact that's having, if it is, at your level of recruiting at the University of Richmond and in the A-10.
I don't know exactly right now. Because I don't know. It's not public, where it's fairly public when somebody gets a scholarship offer. So who's talking to the guy, then who's offered the guy. This is obviously, a contract between the player or prospect and the one entity who's reimbursing him or paying him. So I don't really know. I think it'll be interesting. I think the market will change over the course of these first few years. Transferring being so common. If somebody said, "Hey, we've hired this guy to be a spokesman for our particular business," and then that guy transfers a few months later, I don't know how willing that business owner is to sponsor the next guy, if that's the way it works. So I just think it'll be interesting here in the first few years to see what sticks, and where that happens, especially at our level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Grant about the first 5 to 10 minutes of the half. How crucial will it be for you guys to set your tone against them, especially at that place where they haven't had that home court dominance they've had in recent years?
Yeah, the beginning of each half is super important. Beginning of the second half is sometimes a little bit more important, given that the first half is fairly even. But yeah, the beginning of the game is important because, you have these jitters and you're a little bit nervous or anxious to play. Then you're out there and everything starts to happen very quickly. So I think you want to try to hold down the fort as much as you can. And that means, as solid as you can on defense, as fundamental as you can on offense, and then as the game picks up and kind of develops its own rhythm, then I think you can be into the game. But yeah, both those 4 or 5 minutes, the beginning of the game, beginning of the second half are crucial to the game, especially a game like this where there's a little bit more emotion.
The success you guys have had on the road this year, do you attribute that solely to the experience that you have, or there are some other intangibles that haven't been noticed from, the casual fan? So
yeah, I would say mainly from the experience, just because each part of it, each thing that I would point to is impacted by such an experienced team. So for the most part, we don't have, Jacob is in such control of the game that we don't have to burn timeouts so that we know what we're doing. We don't have to put ourselves in a bad position because we're trying to get our guys set because they're essentially in the right places. So like little things like that could impact a run that the other team's on that hurts you in an away game. Maybe we can counter that with, a good possession or two good possessions, but it all goes back to the experience, I think.
As I mentioned with Grant, you're probably one of the few teams that can kind of simulate what VCU does defensively based on what you have on your roster. Can you speak on, I guess, the advantage of being able to simulate what they do defensively, especially like you said in the second half when you only had 2 turnovers?
Yeah, we steal the ball a lot too, and I think that we don't press quite as often, but we press and we extend our defense and try to be opportunistic and turning teams over. So I do think that our guys, we see that, in September, and when we're practicing just with our own team. So I do think that, it's not that you want to be cautious with the ball, because you actually want to be aggressive, but you want to make sure that you're throwing the ball to the guy who's expecting it in the spot he's expecting to throw it. And so that rhythm is really important. I think hopefully we try to develop it all year round because we also try to do some similar things on defense. Again, not quite as often, or not, don't extend it quite as often, but we do try to do those things. So I do think we're used to it somewhat.
Do the guys come to you now and maybe express wanting to press more during the course of a game?
Not really, because sometimes, pressure is, if you're a team like us who presses at different times, or, and when you get beat on the press, that hurts everybody. Nobody likes that. And so we want to make sure that when we press, that we're aggressive, and we're up, and we're disruptive. But we really don't want to give up anything too easy down at the other end. And so that takes a lot of effort. Now you're pressing, you're sprinting back, and you're defending in the half court. So it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort from all 5 guys to be able to do it. We pressed a lot in the first game with VCU, especially in the second half. And I would expect that we would press some tomorrow night as well.
Coach, do you find yourself over the years repeating a message before, speaking to your players, before going to the Siegel Center, that you don't deliver going to other venues?
Yeah, probably, but it still has more to do with the basketball and the opponent. They've been obviously a great program, my entire time here. So it's more about taking care of the ball, being aggressive, but taking care of the ball, not having live ball turnovers. The crowd is great and terrific, but the players on the court and the style of play is the thing that we address mostly.
Me and Bob were talking. This would be the 5th. You're coming up on your 5th Friday showcase game this year. I know 2 more pending after this one. Can you just speak on, I guess, the importance of being in that spotlight, probably being the only game in town on national television, and how that will help the program as a whole and also the university when you play in these spotlight games?
Yeah, well, it's a great thing. For number one, I think it's great that the A10 has added this Friday night window. I know last year we were scheduled to play a few, and we really wanted to play them at home. That's been my thought, is play them at home. I think the Robins Center is such a great venue. It looks great on television. And so, but to play them in general, and just to be constantly on the mind of our alums, fans, recruits, prospects, high school coaches, I think that's really important. And, although this game's not at home, but having a rivalry game, and, the announcers will be able to convey, I think, the feeling that's in the building. That's all really exciting. I think it just puts you it makes you at a very relevant school, a very relevant program in college basketball, which is an extremely competitive field. And so if you can be relevant and be there, then you have a better chance to attract good players, and hopefully just continue to be as good as possible, because you have talent, you have exposure, you have fans that support your program. So I think it all goes into building that.
As you think back to the last game, it was a 2-point game. Are there many things or any things Richmond would like to do a lot differently, or it was a 2-point game and you lost?
Yeah, obviously, anytime you lose a game, there's obviously adjustments to be made, regardless how it went. They made some really tough shots down the stretch, so credit to them. But I think we really shot ourselves in the foot, especially in the first half. I mean, to have 11 turnovers for us in the first half is unacceptable. And then obviously we had some guys that, you know, usually make shots that didn't, and they just weren't falling for us. And to have all that happen and still it'd be a 2-point game there at the end is, you know, I think says a lot. So we just got to make some small adjustments, take care of the ball, make sure there's no live turnovers, and hopefully we can put ourselves in a position to win it then.
Of A10 arenas, the VCU is pretty good, so that's part of it. Is the Siegel Center the most challenging place to play, or others are just as difficult?
Yeah, you know, obviously they're right up there at the top of the list. I would obviously put Bonaventure up there. I think Bonaventure, you know, with the size of their place, it sort of feels like everybody's right on top of you. Siegel Center a little bit bigger, a little bit more space, but certainly in terms of the noise level and the amount of support that they have out there, and, you know, they're rowdy, credit to their fans. They do a great job. So we got to make sure that we're ready for that and ready to handle that pressure.
If you could think back up several years, would you say name, image, and likeness would have been something that impacted where you chose to go to school in a significant way, in a small way, or no way?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't, you know, a superstar high school player by any means. So I didn't have a lot of the bigger schools where these kids are getting these huge deals recruiting me. So for me personally, I don't think it really would have affected it that much. You know, I chose a school that I felt like was going to be the best situation for me, with a coaching staff that I really liked. And that was the biggest thing. So as long as I had those two things, that's sort of all my decision was going to be based on.
As a college basketball, college athletics fan, do you have a strong feeling about that whole realm like this, and how it might affect what we know as college basketball and football now?
Yeah, I think there's some fine lines in there for sure, especially with the bigger schools and, you know, some of these programs that have a lot of money floating around. But, you know, honestly, I think it's a good thing. You know, maybe not so much speaking for myself or kids from mid-majors, but certainly, you know, people who are at these bigger schools, these potential #1 draft picks, whatever it may be, you know, good for them. Make as much money as you can. You know, you're not going to be able to play your sport forever. So the fact that you can profit on it now in the college realm, all power to them.
You guys have been really successful on the road this year. Can you pinpoint one specific reason as to why you guys have been so successful away from the Robins Center?
Yeah, you know, I think obviously the reason we've done so well on the road, we do have an older team. You know, obviously a lot of experience. I don't really know what it is, or, you know, if there's some that you could pinpoint, but we've certainly done a good job on the road the last couple of years, in my opinion, and hopefully we can keep that up tomorrow night.
How important will the first 5 to 10 minutes of either half Friday night be for you guys to set the tone against them?
Yeah, obviously huge. You know, the way they like to play, sort of ramp people up, force a lot of pressure, cause turnovers, obviously to get settled in and make sure that we take care of the ball and get what we want on the offensive end will be huge in the first couple minutes of the game. But just being able to sort of calm that storm. But that's the biggest thing, just sort of taking care of the ball and making sure we have no live turnovers at the beginning of the game.
I think one of the few teams that can actually simulate what they do defensively based on, you know, length, and also with Gilliard in the backcourt. How much of an advantage is that for you guys when you prepare to face VCU like that?
Yeah, it's huge for sure. Sort of like you said, you know, with the guys that we have, we can definitely do that a little bit to an extent. Our preparation and our scout guys, I think, you know, ever since I've been here, I have done a really good job of sort of simulating that action and what those guys do. You're never going to be able to get exactly what you're going to see in the game, but I certainly think all of our guys have done a really good job in preparation over the years.
For all you guys, this is your last that are going through this for the last time. Is there an additional sense of purpose? VCU, one more shot. I know there could be A10 tournament, but it's part of the home and home. Any additional sense of purpose?
Yeah, you know, anytime we play those guys, it's always a big game for us. It's a big game for the city. You know, us with it being our last time in the Siegel Center and everything, I don't think that really adds anything to it. You know, we're always trying to beat those guys. They're always trying to beat us. So that's just what it comes down to. Everybody will be ready to go regardless.